Hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Nice to have you here, everybody. See a lot of known faces, a lot of friends. So, welcome to the xArch Symposium. I'm not going to start actually with my part because I'm going to leave the floor immediately to our guest of honor, I will say, opening the show. I will leave the floor to Professor Kostas Papakis. Please come to the floor stage here. And you're all set.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Giancarlo. Well, I told David actually before we start today's session that I really hate this room. I hate this room because it makes it evident that I have prepared the speech that I have to read. Unfortunately, I cannot remember all the things that I want to talk about, but please let me give me, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes to give you at least my view about today's symposium and how at least we see it in the design school. So before we start, I would just like to welcome everyone, our staff, our esteemed colleagues and distinguished guests, and to thank you for joining today's xArch Symposium 2023, which is organized by the Design School and the Department of Architecture here in xATLU. So it is really a pleasure actually to stand before you today with such a dynamic audience, eager to delve into the exciting realms of digital architecture, virtual reality and architectural design, artificial intelligence, building information modeling, and of course, several other topics that you can actually see on the screen right now. A few words about the design school. The design school has emerged here in xATLU as a beacon of creativity and innovation since its inception. We have been established with a vision to cultivate a new generation of design thinkers and creators, and the school has consistently pushed the boundaries of design education. Through an interdisciplinary approach, the design school has fostered an environment where students and faculty collaborate across various disciplines, reflecting the diverse and dynamic nature of the design profession. Today's xArch Symposium is a testimony of the success of everyone's efforts in this direction. So I would like to thank everyone involved, from academic to professional services staff, our students, as well as our esteemed guests, for turning our vision and mission into a reality. Now, if we turn our attention to today's main focus of the xArch Symposium, we are talking about the intersection of architecture and digital and AI era. We find ourselves at this moment in time at a juncture where traditional methods of architectural design are evolving rapidly, driven by technological advancements that offer both unprecedented opportunities but also challenges. Digital architecture has transformed the way we conceptualize and create spaces. The advent of virtual reality in architectural design has allowed architects to immerse themselves in their creations before a single brick is actually laid. This immersive experience does not only enhance the design process, but also enables architects to communicate their ideas more effectively with clients and all relevant stakeholders. Artificial intelligence, as you already know, is another transformative force in the architectural landscape. It's redefining how architects approach design solutions. Machine learning algorithms can analyze vast amounts of data, helping architects to make informed decisions about site selection, material choices, energy efficiency, and so on. AI is not replacing, however, architects, but rather augmenting their capabilities, allowing for more efficient and sustainable designs in the future. Building information modeling is yet another game changer. It basically provides this collaborative platform between architects, engineers, construction professionals that they can work together seamlessly. Digital representation of the physical and functional characteristics of a building not only streamlines the digital design and construction process, but also facilitates better communication and coordination among all stakeholders. These are, of course, only a handful of topics covered in xArch Symposium, so stay tuned for what is about to come. So while these advancements open new doors for architects and designers in general, they also bring a set of challenges. The rapid pace of technological evolution demands that architects and designers continually update their skills to stay relevant. The integration of digital tools requires a shift in mindset and a willingness to embrace change. Moreover, ethical considerations surrounding AI in architecture, data privacy, environmental impact of digital technologies also need careful examination. So in this era of digital transformation, architects and designers must navigate a delicate balance between embracing innovation and preserving the core principles of design. The risk of over-reliance on technology looms large, potentially overshadowing the human touch that is integral to the design profession. So as we explore the possibilities of digital architecture, we must remain vigilant about maintaining the essence of this craft and the ability to create spaces that resonate with the human experience. So as we engage in the discussions and presentations today throughout this conference, so let us not only marvel at the possibilities of digital architecture, VR, AI, building information modeling, digital fabrication, and so on, but also critically examine the implications to our profession. Let us challenge ourselves to harness these tools responsibly, ensuring that they serve as enablers rather than substitutes for creative genius that defines architecture. So the xArch Symposium serves as a platform for us to collectively explore, learn, and adapt to the evolving landscape of architectural design in the digital and AI era. So let us embrace those challenges and opportunities before us, united to our commitment to shaping a future where technology and design harmoniously coexist. So thank you all. I wish you all a thought-provoking and inspiring conference, and I really hope you enjoy the rest of today and the really inspiring talks. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you for inviting me to give this short opening speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Kostas. Okay, so my turn. 5 minutes. I'm not going to take too much time because I want to jump in directly to the first keynote speech. So brief introduction on this symposium, which was conceived like this year in late February, March. So it's been quite a rush to organize everything, to have everything set up. It started as a symposium, but as you notice from the program that actually we have also 2 parallel sessions. So it's been growing up quite fastly, and it was a good response from authors and presenters, etc. So it has become quite a small conference, which was quite overwhelming for the organizing team and the scientific committee that I represent. But in the end, we managed to have it everything sorted. And big thank you to the entire team and also to the entire department for the effort, especially for the reviews of the abstracts and full paper. So thank you all. I'm not going to talk about actually the very core idea that was basically a critical approach to AI and its application, because there are going to be quite a few speeches, presentations, and etc. in the 2 parallel sessions. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm glad to have seen that there are basically representations of all possible attitudes or conceptions about this topic. So there are catastrophists, there are enthusiasts, there are passionate lovers of AI. There is quite a broad spectrum of thoughts, I would say, about this tool. Personally, my thought is that I just define it as a tool, so it's a tool. I don't think maybe AI is going to be disrupting in some ways, but personally, my approach is more just very critical. I see it as a dangerous tool, not for job things or work problems, but for human role in the world. And that's why the motto of the symposium is creativity in the age of digital reproduction, because the idea is that if AI substitutes the creative process, then as designers, as professionals, as users of this tool, we are just giving up quite an important part of our unique prerogative in the world. So mine is just more critical approach, not in sense of the risks, but in terms of how we can integrate our unique characteristics as humans with this kind of tool. So I hope that this message will be delivered during the symposium. Actually, one of the things that we asked to all of our keynote speakers was to give have you noticed that usually when you have a keynote speaker in a conference or in a symposium, big symposium, you always have bio, together with a picture of the keynote. But we ask for a critical reflection of AI because probably this is the core aspect that we wanted to touch with this symposium. Then things, as I was mentioning, like exploded in our heads. So now we have a parallel session with different tracks and different topics. So we have all the nice topics that Kostas was listing a few minutes ago. So it would be quite interesting also to attend the sessions upstairs in the first floor. So this is it on my side. So now let me jump into the presentator role. So it's a big honor, well, not only a honor, it's a big pleasure to introduce the first keynote speaker. Well, I think that there is no one in this room that haven't heard his name before. Honored to be his friend since quite a few years. And I hope I will pronounce his name correctly because worldwide there is an entire movement that is trying to, change his name in every possible weird way. So I leave the floor to Arturo Tedeschi, and please, a big welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much, Giancarlo, for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. It's really a great pleasure to be here with you and to have your attention today. I really would like to say thank you to the school for this invitation. Thanks to Davide. My name is Arturo Tedeschi. I'm a designer, an architect and computational designer based in Italy. The lecture today will be about, okay, just a second. Okay, here it is. Okay, the title of this lecture is the AI plot twist. My ambition, my idea is to discuss about the role of AI and the intersection, I would like to say, with creativity. And as I was saying, I'm an architect and beg your pardon, Davide, there is something wrong here. Sorry, guys.
It's down.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry again. So I was saying, I'm an architect and computational designer based in Milano, Italy. I started my career more or less in 2009, and I worked in several, at the intersection of several disciplines. My work includes collaboration with several architects, and I basically, my portfolio includes work in automotive, architecture, industrial design, music stage. And I always like to say that my work never adhere to a particular manifesto, but I like to have this kind of technology wanderlust because I really like to dive into different technology material and explorations in order to have and I understand and I imagine my work and my career as a travel within different technologies and methodologies. I also I'm a independent researcher. I started with my first book in 2010 called Architettura Parametrica, and that was translated 2 years later into an English book called Parametric Architecture with Grasshopper. And in 2014, I published AAD, Algorithms Aided Design, and I can humbly say that this has become one of the reference books on the topic. We all know that artificial intelligence is emerging as a kind of revolutionary force in so many disciplines. But what happens when it somehow interferes, it crosses the idea of creativity, something that we can imagine, that we all imagine like a prerogative of human mind? And I will try to answer, let's say, this question through 7 main points. The first one it's about the evolution of design methodologies. Yesterday, I realized that exactly 25 years ago, I started my career as a student in Naples in southern Italy. And I remember that one of the first books that I opened, a book by Franco Purini, Comporre l'architettura, Composing Architecture, one of the first words, the first sentence was, architecture is a complex art made of simple elements. And I was kind of shocked, because, yeah, architecture is complex because it involves human beings, the organization of spaces and life somehow, but made of simple elements, because back to 1998, the tools of architects were basically paper, compass, pencil, calculator, something very easy, and maybe computer-aided design. But tools were very, very simple. And one of the consequences of this kind of approach was that we had a very net division between ideation and process. I'm talking about this. So we can imagine our brain, divided into two main hemispheres, the right side and left side. The right side is the realm, of ideation, of creativity, and the left side is about, the analog parts, the calculation, the rational parts, if you like. Let's take, for example, into consideration this building by Frank Gehry, completed in 1996. You can clearly see that the idea of this building is a separation between the idea and the realization that is very complex, actually. But the idea is something that is not connected with the tool. It's something that comes before. This idea of Ginger and Roger, we are going to discuss this later on, about two dancing building. It's something that is not and was not connected with the tool. The idea came before the technology. And you know that this building was one of the first that used and relied on complex computational tools like CATIA, one of the first, tools like inherited from automotive or different like fields. But the idea was before the technique. Like it was born into a separate realm. And there is something analog, for example. I don't know if I'm basically started doing, analog photography recently, and I can see a kind of parallel with this. Imagine to use an analog camera. You just have some gear, you have some lever. The technology is very simple. In order to take a nice picture, is everything about, capturing the right moment. It's about having some idea of how to take a nice photography, how to do a storytelling. There is nothing about technology. It's just about clicking in the right moment. So you need to have knowledge, tools, very simple one, and practice. And this is very simple because no one talks about this. But the traditional methodologies, they were all about the so-called muscle memory. I don't know if you ever try to replicate maybe the Gioconda. You can have the knowledge, maybe you know everything about Renaissance. You know how to paint something. You have the perfect tools. But if you try maybe to do it, you will get that kind of thing. Because in order to create something with standard, with simple methodologies and tools, you need to have practice, to have a kind of muscle memory that you have to develop. And maybe you will say, well, but there is nothing connected with architecture. I don't know if you ever 3D model of if you use like subdivisional modeling. It's all about muscle memory, actually. It's all about doing practice and pulling and pushing edges and faces and so on. You need to develop this kind of habit in touching the digital matter. So we can say that in traditional methodologies, they actually promoted and promote ideation. Ideation is completely separated from technique. And then they employ simple tools, but that require practice and muscle memory in order to be managed and utilized. Then what happened more or less in around 2005, 2006, that we had that architecture actually experienced a kind of transition from traditional tools to what we can call platforms. And so everything involve somehow the left side of the brain. I'm quoting here Patrick Schumacher. This is a text that comes from a very nice video that I found online, and it was about Schumacher promoting the use of digital tools in Zaidi Architect office. And he was saying that in our processes, everything is responding and interacting with everything else in a kind of computational environment, which is brought through us through the animation industry. It's the kind of beauty of organic life where a lot of forces interact. They lawfully interact. He was talking about the use in that particular case of Maya in architecture. And for the first time, we were moving from simple tools into something more complex, like digital platforms, where you could explore forces, physical forces, and interaction between so many different things inside a single platform. And so what happened at that time is that ideation and process, they merged into something that we can call lawful interaction. And so a project like this is an urban project by Zaidi Architects, more or less 2010, we can clearly see that ideation and process, they actually were fused into something overlapped. There was not anymore, do you remember the Frank Gehry thing? Idea and process later on? No, everything inside the same platform. You cannot distinguish between idea and process. So that's why also a kind of architectural language emerged at that time, because again, the aesthetic, the visual language was a direct consequence of the tools that we started using. So here you can see, again, buildings from Zaidi Architects. Here, for example, is an installation that I made in 2012. Actually, you can clearly see a set of the, similarities between the two projects, mainly because we were using the same tools. And this is another particular case, a very small-scale project where a shoe was actually conceived through an FEM program software. And again, you can see how the idea is not something that comes before the object itself, but it's completely merged. The process makes the design. And so algorithmic modeling that is at the basis of this new kind of processes is actually, we can consider it as a kind of evolution of the Bézier curves. And so everything started more or less in 1968 with the introduction of mathematical curves in automotive, basically. And then we have this kind of path. So Bézier, they became NURBS and then meshes and subdivision modeling, and then algorithmic modeling that created a wide range of architecture. Here you can see, or design, here you can see some projects that I made over the years. But the nice part and the interesting part here is that everything was created upon curves and points. Also, a very complex project that I developed with Ross Lovegrom in 2015, where we massively use simulation processes inside a three-dimensional modeling software. Here you can see particles, abstraction, network, elasticity, everything overlapped into a same process in order to create a design, and in this very case, three-dimensional high complex shoe. And everything was based on the development of highly intricate and complex algorithms, or other exploration where, for example, for the definition of a furniture design, a chair in particular, we used, for example, virtual reality in order to define the old geometry inside a virtual space. And again, I want to focus the idea that, again, ideation and process, they overlapped inside the same environment. Around 2015, more or less, we saw for the first time a kind of intersection between the first evolutionary line of, again, from Bézier curve to algorithmic modeling, Machine learning appeared more or less in the same environment. I'm talking about, for example, the Rhino platform, where some machine learning tool appears, like, Lunchbox ML, for example, that introduce Gaussian mixture or k-means clustering. And so we were expecting somehow a massive use of machine learning fueling the left side of our brain, the rational part. And so we can see so many development like Finch 3D, a way to create, for example, to organize layout using artificial intelligence, or any other tool that was and is leveraging AI and machine learning to control the complexity of architecture organization. Also in the small scale, for example, the use of k-means clustering, for example, can be used, and we used it, for example, for the generation of wall systems or structure that we use for furniture design or interior design. In this case, for example, the idea of creating different clustering for the placement of a light system inside freeform geometry was actually performed using ML system. So computational methodologies, they promote analysis and mathematical logic or mathematical creativity, and they use complex tools that require highly specialistic skills. But this is very important, but they don't require any muscle memory. This is the very first stage where design tools, they did not require any kind of practice in terms of, manual touch or control of geometries. And then 2015, more or less, we can see this evolution from logic to statistic correlation. And so meanwhile, we were proving to be human. Somehow, they were labeling images. And so that was the first stage. Image labeling is about, having a kind of computer vision and then recognizing objects in a kind of dynamic way. And mainly, we are talking now about diffusion models. Someone thought about, reversing the process. So it was everything about to turn text and words into images. And it created the revolution that we are living and witnessing today, where diffusion models, they're kind of recording, we can say, the latent relationship between complex data. And this is something that is very similar to what is happening inside human brain. And this one, for example, is the Midjourney interface. It's probably the most used interface over the last 2 years. It's a way that designers and architects, they are exploring to create, to imagine something new. And this is a very revolution. It's a great revolution because for the first time, and I'm coming back to the idea of muscle memory, it's the first time where we can create, let's say, images at the current stage without using our hands, but just by communicating with the computer in a completely new way. And then we can see how it's possible to generate also the complexity that belong to, the world of computational design and complex geometries. And again, it's just about turning text and definitions into images. And something that we can that everyone witnessed again over the last year is a kind of explosion of creativity. Here we can see images from Ulysses or Strange Things that are really, really popular online. And in a kind of circularity, I started showing you the project by Frank Gehry. We are coming back somehow, thanks to AI, into this new realm where ideation and process are again disconnected. Here, the process is completely hidden, and again there is this emergence of a creativity that comes before, creativity and storytelling that comes before the object itself and the process itself. So this is probably the so-called plot twist. We were, again, expecting AI fueling the left side of the brain, but is actually unexpectedly fueling the right side, the realm of ideation. And so if you want to create at least one image or just a bunch of pixels that represent a highly complex object like this, you don't have to use muscle memory. You don't have to use complex relationship and algorithms, but it's just enough to write a prompt in order to get, again, at current state, just a highly complicated and complex image that required a lot of codes, lines of codes, or highly intricate algorithms. And so AI at the moment is like bridging the gap between the idea that we have in our mind and something that will be highly complicated to be created using our naked hands. So again, we can see this kind of, again, split between process and ideation that we saw with traditional tools before. So AI methodologies, somehow they are promoting ideation and something that is called combinational creativity. They are foster a novel and unprecedented human-machine interaction, and they use simple tools that don't require specialistic skills or muscle memory. I was talking about combinational creativity. The emergence of and the creativity that we are witnessing online, it's something that we can call, and I'm referring to the work of Margaret Boden, the so-called combinational creativity, which is about making unfamiliar combinations or familiar ideas. If you, for example, if we focus on, for example, the work of Philip Stark and the Juicy Salif, we can see that it actually merges two different concepts that are familiar into a single design objects. It requires, of course, a rich store of knowledge in the person's mind, and correlation are possible if there is something intelligible or linear link between ideas. Now, it looks probably new, but the whole history of design architecture is about combinational creativity. So coming back to Frank Gehry, we have this Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers translated into a building, but also the Le Corbusier Villa Savoye is actually, it embeds the idea of a machine for leading. So it's about a combinational way to put together architecture, and in this case, cars or ships, for example. Or the Nike Air coming to the world, the realm of industrial design. I don't know if you know that Nike Air Max, they were inspired by the Centre Pompidou. The designer of the Nike Air Max was in Paris, and he was fascinated by this idea of showing off the technology. And he came back to Portland, Oregon, and he designed the Air Max. So everything is about, in the history of design, about combining familiar concepts and putting together into something unfamiliar or new. Or maybe work by Ross Lovegrove that was designing is a water bottle, in 2001 that was created with digital tools, but the idea, again, is completely separated by the process. This is a bottle that resembles, of course, the fluidity of water, and he used the technology to achieve that kind of result, but the ideation is completely separated again. Or, for example, one of the latest projects, very famous, the Sphere, that, of course, it uses the state-of-the-art of technology for LED, etc. But actually, it's the idea of having a black screen, a large-scale black screen where you can put whatever you want. And here, a project that that Ross Lovegrove designed. I was the computational designer for this project, and staying in the realm of combinational creativity. This is a work that actually used the state-of-the-art of algorithmic design, but actually the core of this project was a metaphor. This is a perfume bottle for Formula One. And if you have to create a bottle for a racing company, you have two basic options. You create a bottle that looks like a car, or you work metaphorically. And in this case, the idea was to it's a metaphor of the metal frame that protects the fragile part. In the case of a car, is the driver. In our case, was the flask bottle. And this is very interesting because if you go to Midjourney, one of the most common latent diffusion models out there, and you try to create a perfume bottle for a racing company, you will probably get something like this. You can see, we can see these images like with some kind of irony, but actually it tells a lot about, not only about the, let's say, the AI creativity, but more about human creativity. And we can say that we are still able to create more sophisticated, actually, metaphors that at current state AI cannot achieve, because it works in a kind of very linear way, putting together, merging together simple concepts. And I've always liked to say, and that's the reason why AI can create jokes, but not black humor jokes. Point 3, again, AI is not only a way at current state to generate, to create creative output, but also to understand creativity in general. So this is a series of exploration that I've been doing over the last 3-4 months, and it's about to capture the dynamism, for example, of art. In this very case, we can see some work inherited by the Italian Futurismo that was, and of course, in the futuristic painting, we can say the idea of trying to represent dynamism, and thanks to, again, diffusion models, I achieved this kind of videos that somehow they try to capture the dynamic forces and generative power that is behind the abstract futuristic painting. And this is very recent. For example, this is probably one of the early paintings of Zaha did that I tried to animate. But again, animation is more about understanding the inner generative forces inside lines on a paper. Or the idea of morphogenesis, creating buildings that are basically merged, for example, with nature, but trying not to create just one image, but having a kind of digital DNA that creates a morphogenetic process. And then also shrinking the pipeline. Another set of possibilities that AI is giving to us is the idea of, for example, a direct translation from, the rough idea that maybe we can trace on a piece of paper directly into highly sophisticated renders. For example, here I was leveraging the potentials of diffusion models and control nets in order to easily sketch, in this case, a set of yacht design explorations into renders or cars, for example. And then towards 3D. As I was saying before, at current state, diffusion models are generating images, so pixels, but there are so many, actually, every day a new tool is like popping up from the internet about the new potential of translating images or text into 3D directly. Here we can see some very early exploration using depth estimation maps. So starting from an image generated in Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, you can easily create a three-dimensional, very rough model, actually, that you can directly maybe link to a three-dimensional tool like Rhinoceros, as you can see here. or this one is a process that we developed in Rhino and Grasshopper, where we use an algorithm that is able to detect edges from images in order to have a detection of a 3D model starting again from a set of images generated, for example, in Midjourney, like in this case. Or the idea of outputting videos that try to describe, let's say, not a 360, but at least some degrees of freedom around an object like a shoe, as you can see here. And again, depth estimation map in order to translate an image into a workable three-dimensional model. And also tutoring, leveraging, for example, the great possibilities of a tool like ChatGPT to ask how to create a specific process, for example, for Rhino-Grasshopper. Here you can see that I basically asked how to create a hexagon grid or diamond grid, and then you can get an answer from ChatGPT, and to be precise, a code maybe written in Python. ChatGPT has also a very powerful debugging skills, and then you can easily copy and paste the script into a Python component within Grasshopper, and then you can play, and you can, and also it's a kind of learning process in order to speed up the understanding, for example, of a scripting language like Python. Vocabulary, because as you can see, we are developing a new way to interact with the computer. So this is a very, it's getting more and more famous, this quote by Ludwig Wittgenstein: "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." And we, as designer, for example, I try to benefit from this imagery power from diffusion models to change somehow the signature of my design, and learning a new kind of language, a new vocabulary. They are the very early explorations for a project that I developed for a musician in the US, where I try to understand and to develop a new kind of language according to the artwork of the artist itself. And so I started doing exploration using Midjourney and Stable Diffusion, and they were the basis for the creation of the stage design, and everything was turned into a real model using traditional actually processes, because again, it's not possible to have a direct transition from image to actual machinable models at current moment. And here you can see the final project that was completed a few months ago. And when I say vocabulary, I basically mean the idea of, enlarging the set of words metaphorically that we can use in our projects. And finally, errors. I always like to mention this project by Philip Schmidt that was developed more or less in 2018, if I remember, that is called the Chair Project, where he was leveraging the potential of StyleGAN, Generative Adversarial Network at that time. And he was creating these very rough images of, chairs, and he actually made them by keeping the mistakes or, the weird details coming from the StyleGAN. And a few years after, I was asked to design a watch for an Italian company. And they were saying to me, Arturo, if you want to design a successful project, you have to copy this guy, who is called Gerald Genta, one of the most famous Swiss designer of watches. And I said, okay, so we can use a style gun in order to do that. And so we downloaded probably 2,000 watches from 70s. And the output was that we, of course, recreated with traditional three-dimensional modeling tools, was full of errors that we actually kept in the model. So you can see here, for example, a very strange detail about how the case merges in the crown guard. And that was something that we didn't think about before doing this exploration. So errors sometimes are a way, a detour from the standard or from the main road is a way to maybe find a new design trajectory. And so in conclusion, I always like to put this example. If we imagine the design problems or goals as a keyhole, so far we developed the solution, so metaphorically the key, in a very rational way by designing the perfect key in order to open the door. With artificial intelligence, we are actually moving into another dimension where the intelligent machine can produce millions of different keys, and probably also an algorithm able to select the right object that will open the door. And so it will change probably everything. And we should be really prepared. We should be prepared and totally gear up with the new tools. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Arturo. Please stay here around because we will try to grab the attention of the audience by having some kind of Q&A session. Don't be shy. Oh, we have, of course, John.
On the don't be shy note. Arturo, I'm probably the least digital in the room. The work is fascinating. And I guess from my point of view, what we have to try and look at is how we can modernize the architectural curriculum, which is still stuck in the image of the Bauhaus. And I like the idea you're talking about how you merge that idea of the ideation and the process.
Yeah.
Whereas we want to look at how we can make the digital and the analog work together. So I guess while we're here, it'd be good to kind of tap into how you may see we can perhaps modernize the way we approach education of our students.
Well, first of all, the first part of the lecture was focused on an idea that pops up in my mind every day as a designer and also as a trainer. Sorry, okay, is that probably during something that we call the parametric architecture or computational design, we really, and I was probably the first one, we overlapped this idea of processes with ideation, but I actually realized that storytelling is very important. And since, as I said, the new tools remove this kind of muscle memory requirement, we can say, the main recommendation for students is to develop this kind of area of our brain where knowledge and information and story and storytelling, it's more important than the tools themselves, because we are really going towards a new dimension where storytelling will do the difference, I guess. That's why I also mentioned the projects of Frank Gehry or Le Corbusier himself. The idea of combining different things and putting them together in a smart way will be probably really one of the most important skills. And actually, over the last 10 years, we probably forgot about this. And everything was about developing skills about how to create scriptings and how to, design problems. They have become computational problems. And that's probably a misconception that we are going to remove, also thanks to, let's call it artificial intelligence.
Next. Questions? Neil.
Thanks, Arturo. Great. I love your work. Actually, you approach it in a very different way to the way I do. You're the technologist that I'm the kind of theorist, as it were. But I was just thinking about, I think Wittgenstein is quite interesting as a figure, because we cannot speak, therefore we must only remain silent. He also gives a sense in which the meaning of something is really dependent on how it's being used. And I think this is actually quite interesting when it comes to the use of words in prompts. But my prompts are much longer than yours, and I'm quite surprised by how short your prompts are, but how effective they are. But one of the things I began to realize when I was writing prompts was actually that the prompts, we use the expression prompt engineering.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a very exact objective science.
Yes.
But it's anything but, in my experience. And it came out, I think, when I was, someone told me to, suggested, oh, do something on house extensions. So, okay, I put the word house extension into my prompt. And then I discovered actually that I kept getting these British-looking buildings and gloomy weather. I kind of go home, it's very gloomy like. And I thought, this is weird. Why am I getting all these British-looking buildings? And eventually I realized that actually the term house extension is only used in the UK. And in the States, there has been like, I don't know, home improvement or something like that, or whatever. And I realized that actually everything is coming from a context, right? So I think the point is that a lot of the data is absolutely totally contextually based. And it brings with it associations, which is really intriguing, but it means that basically what you're doing when you're writing a prompt, it's kind of alchemy. It's super complicated from my experience. So I took that further, and I began to realize that I used the name of an Australian Aboriginal artist, and all of a sudden I got beautiful Australian sunshine. I got images of the outback and beautiful colours and so on. Then I tried putting in the name of an Inuit artist from northern Canada, Eskimo. I don't use that term anymore. And I got every building I did came with snow on it. And I thought, this is really sort of strange. And I think more and more that what you're getting is this associative logic. Everything is embedded in a context. And that's actually the way that we think as humans. We're kind of associative thinkers.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're in a kitchen and you see a hob that is bright red, you know not to touch it because you associate bright red with heat and so on. And I think from that point of view, I just think that what needs to be teased out even more is this Wittgenstein comment. I mean, the logic of Wittgenstein. And I just don't think it's quite so straightforward. And I think, so therefore, the notion of the error, which was kind of, I think it's embedded in absolutely everything you do when you're using these diffusion models to some extent. And that is the kind of, in some sense, it opens up the possibilities of what you might be thinking of because of that astonishing associative kind of logic. So I haven't really got a question, just to say, I think, I mean, beautiful presentation, but I do think that we need to interrogate Wittgenstein more because there's something incredibly interesting about what he says about language. And I think, to my mind, maybe I'll be responding to you later on, I think the term creativity is one of those really problematic terms because we don't know what we're talking about when we use that term. That's a provocation to you.
Now, first of all, there is something important to say. So my answer would be technical, not philosophical or in terms of theory. Every time we think about diffusion models, somehow we think about Midjourney that works using let's say, a trained model. There is a black box, first of all, that is trained in order to create shoes, cars, architecture, and it's very straightforward. But I deeply believe that the future will be about creating, let's say, custom models, something that you can already do with, let's say, tools like Stable Diffusion, for example. And so this is the first thing that probably we have to overcome. It's about going towards custom models and getting rid of this idea of keeping things that coming from already made, models like Midjourney, for example. And creativity, and then it's impossible to answer that, but yeah, I deeply believe that the creativity that AI tools are mimicking is the combinational one, as I said. They try to create new stuff by combining different things, but in a very, I would say, shallow way at the moment. So there is still the need of a huge human contribution in order to create highly sophisticated metaphors that the machine by itself cannot do.
Other questions? Okay.
You for your presentation on Juan Carlos.
Thank you so much.
Very fascinating, and I especially appreciate more the theoretical part with this distinction between process and ideation, with a hope, at least for those that believe in the process, that AI will help to come back to that point.
Yeah.
My question is more a question as you as an architect, right? So because at the end of the day, I'm very fascinated with these examples, looking to, let's say, facades, surfaces, design objects. My question is related more to architecture as space.
Mm-hmm.
I quoted Ren Koolhaas that was saying that for a reason, the technological evolution and whatever runs very fast, but the idea of the house, or the idea of the space, or the idea of how we experience a space, is an evolution. Then if we think about let's say, Le Corbusier or a modern house, and domes has not been really that much. So my question is, what do you think? This AI evolution might help also in that sense, or we will stay in the field of surfaces, or let's say language, right? That's very fascinating. Or can this time could really have an impact in that, let's say, 2000 stable evolution, or very slow evolution?
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea of creating spaces and articulation in architecture, we can link it to the first part of my presentation. Again, everything it's generally created on a piece of paper, then translated, generally in a three-dimensional model or a BIM or a highly sophisticated algorithm. Probably, and it should start from teaching, of course. It's about introducing maybe machine learning inside space planning and layout organization. This is something that it's really not that common, for example, in architecture school. So the very last slide about the keyhole and etc. Yeah, that's the logic from my perspective. It's about learning how to use AI in terms of machine learning to create automatic layout maybe, and then architects, they will be the ones to pick up the right one and then combine them. A layout is a kind of neutral organization. And when you get the right one, you can blend it with your personal story, with the ideation that is about, the use of material, your expressivity, and etc., in order to create something unique. So from my standpoint, it's about combining something that is highly technical, that comes from, imagine we are actually working in this very moment in the development of a machine learning algorithm to organize a complex building in Switzerland. It's a very highly articulated hotel. And we are using machine learning in order to create the right organization of spaces. But, on top of it, we are putting our own ideas and visions in terms of, of architecture as a discipline that puts together creativity and technical side of things.
Okay, thank you, Juan Carlos. Any other questions also from students? It's interesting to notice how the actually from this kind of Q&A and also from real observation, I will also try to do some kind of synthetic definition that like the prompt is not the answer, I would say, like, yeah. So do you want to say something now?
Which is not really a brand new question, it's the standard question every time I do to every guest, because at the end of the day, this is a university, so it's an educational institution, and there are even students at the moment sketching on a napkin about how to do this and that, and the person is laughing at me. So the question for the guest is always the same, and it is based also on the fact that I know a bit your story, and I know that at a certain stage in your career you got fascinated by a pavilion in front of the AA school in London. Apologize, I don't remember the name of the author, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question is, again, being in university, knowing that you got at a certain stage trapped by that image of that pavilion quite a few years ago now.
Yeah.
What would be your suggestion, 3 bullet points for our students, what they have to look into, which is not just learn how to code or learn how to write a prompt, but what is your vision for the next, let's say, 10 or 15 years of the profession? I don't want to say as an architect, but as a designer in the more holistic sense of the term, as you showed in your presentation.
Yeah, first of all, probably the most important skill will be how to get new skills every day, because every day we are getting new information about, new methodologies, for example, all the diffusion models. Environment is like changing on a daily basis, and it's not just about getting technical skills, but it's about how to combine a theoretical framework that you have to build, and so that's the first bullet point, Davide. Creating a framework, a kind of structure where you put everyday new elements, that's probably the most important thing. And it is not about, technology or the new kids on the block in terms of a tool, but it's about, developing your own skeleton that it's personal and it's like tailored on your vision and goals. Getting new skills every day. It sounds, really like, a motivational quote on Instagram, but it's really, really important. So that's why, as you said, I started in 2008, 2009, more or less, when I changed all my life and career because I was fascinated by a pavilion, as you mentioned, designed by Danesia Sibingo at AA School in London. And the first thing that I thought at that time was, I want to become that thing. And I was not able to design or imagine a structure that was highly complex. And so probably students, they have to find out there, and now we have a lot of possibilities, they have to find stimuli and in everything in order to find their own story and their own direction. And it's very important, and again, I will repeat myself, to really disconnect the ideation from the technicality, because this is something also as a tutor that I realized over the years that is kind of problematic, and that's why sometimes we are really stuck in a kind of technological, dimension that should be somehow overcame. And that's why we realized that over the last year, that's why we saw this explosion of something that we can trivially say creativity, probably because we wanted to escape from this technological, boundary. I don't know if I answered all the 3 points.
It was for the students, not for me.
Okay, we have time for another question. Oh, Clemens.
Thank you for a great presentation. I have a question. In my opinion, innovations in architecture always go along with innovations in other technological fields, like engineering, for example, like steel or concrete.
Yeah.
They entail large changes. And do you think that this could be also taken care of by AI?
To be honest, at the moment, I don't see, this is a very interesting question. I don't see any, but probably it's just my point of view. I don't see any kind of evolution of spaces or ideas, aside from this, let's say in a very trivial way, this highly creative and complex, images like the ones that I showed before. It will probably be, again, the Gioconda, the Mona Lisa image. To me, it's a way to accelerate the gap from what we have in our mind and the technical possibility and the ability to turn ideas into something real. So at the moment, I don't see any new a kind of emerging species coming from AI. For example, computational design, as I said, that kind of combination of scripting logic and having a platform where you could simulate physical, for example, forces. The shoe that I shared before was about simulating elasticity inside that 3D modeling software. That created, something new in terms of a new species. AI at the moment and the images that we can see online, they are trying to mimicking that kind of thing. There are so many people that, they saw a huge barrier to entry in the computational world. And now everyone is doing this it's like replicating this kind of aesthetic, just because it's easier to just reproduce that complexity. But I don't see any new breed now that is coming and is fueled by the AI. I'm sure you think the same.
Well, this is a very interesting topic, but I think it should deserve also some kind of dedicated session, because it's really complicated, I think, to encompass all the considerations that it implies. So thank you, Clemens. We should organize another symposium, actually.
On that.
Yeah. So, on this single observation, but thank you very much.
2024.
2024, yeah, maybe this is just, no, don't do that. Okay, so if there is no other question, I will excuse Arturo and thank him again. Oh, question. Oh, and do you want to read it?
Yes, Gian can.
If I have the opportunity to make a question for the speaker, if AI becomes capable of autonomously designing structures and projects that are aesthetically pleasing and functionally superior, how should the industry balance the use of AI with the need to preserve and foster human craftsmanship and intuition in design?
Well, so do we have 5 hours for that?
Another symposium.
5 minutes. Again, we can clearly see that the technology at this stage is not able, again, to create a highly sophisticated combination, but we are just at the beginning. Will it be possible for an intelligent machine to autonomously create a building? Yes, of course. But designers will be, again, the one that will choose the right probably solution. I mean, I don't want to use, simple metaphors like we are not doing calculation anymore by our hands and we are using the calculator. But basically, we will be at the core of the process always. But the answer is yes, if I have to, give a straightforward, answer to the question. Yeah, a machine will be able to autonomously create a building. There is no doubt about this. It's already possible, actually. you know, some industrial design project that I showed you, they were created with algorithms, and you know, it's like you create this flow of information interconnected, and then you trigger this process, you know, like a cascade, and everything is created autonomously. So I don't really think that there are doubts about that. But you know, human beings will be still at the core of the process.
And we hope this answers the question from online user. Okay, so at this point, Arturo, thank you very much. Thank you
so much to you guys
for your inspiring speech. So the session here in this lecture hall is finished. We can move out, and there is a coffee break, and then we will split into the two parallel sessions upstairs. Check always the program that is exposed on the totem next to the registration desk. So
2 p.m. there is the second keynote of the
yes, today Floriano Show will be the second keynote speaker here in this hall.